Welcome back. In this episode, we will be exploring the impact of tourism on the environment. In Jackson, the thing that makes it unique is its nature. Due to its proximity to the first national park, Yellowstone, which was created in 1872, Jackson locals have always been aware of and advocating for the conservation and preservation of this land. Not only does this county house Yellowstone, it also includes Grand Teton National Park, Bridger Teton National Forest, and the National Elk Refuge. While we cannot get the perspectives of locals from a century ago, I did learn the perspectives from three current ones. I interviewed Allison Quartermanch, the wildlife and research biologist at Wyoming Game and Fish Department, Elisha Vetter, a high school senior who has participated in multiple conservation projects, and Heidi Summers, a marriage and family therapist who has lived here for 22 years. I was interested in their thoughts in moderating tourism.
That's a tough question to answer. We just don't know what the impacts would be of moderating tourism. We don't know. Obviously, I would be just fine with moderating tourism for a couple years, just to experiment with it. But yeah, I think there could be some major environmental positive impacts to it. All the negative impacts would be financial, I believe. Yeah, I think it would be an interesting experiment, but I'm not sure that the positive impacts of regulating tourism would outweigh the economic negative impacts.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know how to do that, but I am starting to feel like that more and more. It just seems like we're kind of over capacity in a way during the summertime, especially when there's so many people. Yeah, and one of the things that I've seen a lot just in the last couple of years is like, it definitely seems like we're over capacity with people showing up, and like all the hotels are full, all the campgrounds are full, and so people are kind of overflowing, onto public lands and just camping wherever in places they shouldn't be. And so I feel like it can be really detrimental to the environment having just so many people here, with really like, we just don't have the infrastructure to like have that many people.
I then asked Allison on the most frequently asked questions that she gets while working at Wyoming Game and Fish.
Honestly, a lot. So most of the questions I get asked are probably fall into two categories. Probably either hunting related, so we interact with a lot of hunters that come through, people coming here for the very first time to hunt and like need a lot of information. The other question that we often get is just like we were talking about earlier, like more so people living here having different wildlife encounters, or especially like wildlife, on their property or in their backyard, and just wondering what they should do.
Following that up, I asked each of them about the ways to approach this area as a local or visitor.
Even though every single day I look out my window and I just think, wow, like that's amazing that I live here and that's my backdrop. Like that's real. It's not a canvas, it's real. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So like the gratitude for living here never goes away, but perhaps we do lose a little bit of that essence. So I think when tourists come in, they're completely just awestruck because it's gorgeous.
If people can, like, at least when I go and travel to other places, I always try to go out of your way to like look for resources or learn like how, if I'm visiting this national park, like, are there bears here? Are there like animals that I need to be worried about? Are there like snakes here that I'm not used to being around living in Jackson? Things like that. So just like looking for resources, trying to educate yourself about, how should I operate and recreate in this environment?
Try to enjoy it as much as you can while having as little impact as possible, which sounds simple. But I mean, stay on the trails, follow the regulations about not taking things from the environment that aren't supposed to be taken. Don't approach wildlife. You can take pictures, get a camera with some zoom. Like, I know it's hard, but that's always a good idea. Try to follow the traffic rules and like not parking where you're not supposed to park. Like, you can't just, I find it very common to see just traffic jams on the side of the road where there's no parking spots. It really inhibits things. You don't always have to stop to look at an animal. It's okay to either keep going or just pull over, or slow down to take a picture, then keep going.
I asked them their thoughts on the impacts of tourists on the national parks.
I think the national parks, they need the revenue for all of the tourists coming in, and I think they're kind of like driving through, generally speaking, maybe camping for a few days. So I don't think that they're disturbing much of like the ecosystem or nature, except when they make silly decisions like putting a baby bison in the back of their car because they think it's cold.
Well, first and foremost, as much as locals like to hate on tourists, like, tourists are like almost our entire economy. Like, we would be nothing without the millions of tourists that visit Jackson every summer, every winter, all year round. Like, they are the reason that we're able to thrive here as locals. However, I think it's obvious the negative impacts they have on the national parks. Like, the national parks are extremely well regulated. There are a bunch of rules in place to try to keep it pristine. But as much as we do that, like millions of feet traveling over the trails every summer, it has an inherent negative impact on the environment. It's kind of an inherent aspect of the national parks, but I don't think that discredits their value.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I feel like since I've lived here, I've seen a pretty significant rise in the number of visitors that we're seeing pretty quickly. And there's a lot of people, I think a lot of people coming that like the national parks and we as a community just aren't prepared to like have that many people showing up and wanting to recreate here all at once. And I think unfortunately I see a lot of people that come here that really don't know a lot about how to be in the outdoors or how to act here around wildlife. And so, yeah, I feel like our community and the national parks and all the public lands and we as Game and Fish like have a lot to do just to try to educate people about how they should behave here, how they should act here, like how to have, minimize their impact on the natural environment and on wildlife.
Then followed up with a question about if the current interactions between people and wildlife are healthy in this area.
It's really tough from what I've seen. I think it's really tough in this valley because like we were saying, there's so many visitors who come in who just aren't educated about the wildlife that we have here. And there's so many people moving here too, buying houses or buying second homes here who also aren't educated about the wildlife. So yeah, I think we need to do just a better job all around like educating people, because I think most people like want to do the right thing, but they don't know what that is. So I think it's getting maybe better slowly, but it has a long ways to go.
I don't think they're healthy at all. I think a lot of people, and I was guilty of this 11 years ago. Like when we came here, like my dad likes to tell stories about the first time he saw a moose. He didn't even know what it was. Like he walked up, in our opinion now, like way too close to a moose. But yeah, it's kind of just like a reality. There are some that are like kind of egregious, but a lot of them are just innocent, like negligence. Like they just don't know. Like a lot of people see a bear and they don't even, like, all they know about bears is that they're in all kinds of TV shows, animated shows. You see them at the zoo, they look all cute and cuddly, but they're not. I think I've seen plenty of people in my time here just doing stuff that now I consider just like ridiculously not smart to do.
I wondered, what's the most surprising story or experience here?
Well, I mean, there's kind of that infamous story or incident from a few years ago of the person who put the bison calf in their car in Yellowstone. So I always think of that, and we have had instances like that with other animals, you know, where people like just don't know, they think they're doing the right thing, and yeah, they go out and like pick up a newborn pronghorn and bring it in, or, you know, yeah, put it in their car and like think that they're helping it. You know, that happens a lot here where, yeah, someone like finds an animal that's just been born, like an elk calf or a deer fawn or pronghorn fawn, and, you know, the mother will give birth, and then she'll go off and, you know, feed and leave the newborn there hidden. And so people will find it, like think it's been abandoned, and, you know, put it in their car, bring it to us, want us to help it, and it's like, oh, it was fine, you know, the mother was just like, she was gonna come back for it. So yeah, things like that are just really frustrating when that stuff happens.
When I first got to Jackson, I mean, I grew up ski racing and I was an athlete, and I, you know, felt like I was a, you know, strong woman. And when I came to Jackson and I took my first run, it was on the tram, and I was pretty comfortable skiing with whoever and wherever. So I got on this tram, we're all jammed in there like sardines, and you smell everybody else's breath, and it was exciting and exhilarating because it was my first day and I just moved to Jackson. And I was looking around and I realized there's all these burly women who were a lot shorter than me with these just giant skis. And then when I got to the top and we put our skis on and buckled up, and everyone just like disappeared. And they were amazing athletes. So it was very humbling. It was surprising how, like, what the standard is here. It is like, it's mind-blowing. You think you're an athlete, and then you come here and you're like, what? You didn't just climb the Grand today, you climbed like all the peaks today and you ran it? Oh my gosh. So those are some of the things that surprised me, because like just a body's ability to perform like that and like actually meet the people and have hiked it yourself blows my mind.
Then I asked Allison about her favorite Teton mountain, as she has spent plenty of time up there due to her work.
You know, actually, I think probably my favorite is Prospector's Mountain, which actually doesn't have a trail to the top of it. I've only been to the top of it twice. But the reasons I like it is, yeah, it's really hard to get to. It's kind of more obscure, like a lot of people don't go there, especially in the summertime. And one of my favorite animals here are bighorn sheep, and that's like one of their main areas that they live in the wintertime in the Tetons. So it's a really cool mountain.
What's the most interesting thing you have learned here?
Well, for me, I guess I moved from California and like came to Jackson, and it was a little bit more redneck than I was used to. And so I met all kinds of fun, like cowboys and like pioneer kind of people that went hunting, and like they were just burly people. They were incredible. But I guess the most influential people that I met are from our previous church, because I wasn't really a woman of faith before I came to Jackson, so I found Jesus here, and so that group of people within the church completely changed my life.
And finally, how does the environment play into Jackson's culture?
Oh yeah, I think, it seems like the environment here is like intimately intertwined with people and culture. in Jackson Hole. It's pretty cool. Like I feel like most, like if you were to ask most people like who have moved here, like the environment and kind of being like close to nature was probably one of like the key reasons why they chose to move here. Myself included, like being like living in and amongst like this, you know, landscape with like the Tetons right out your back door, and wildlife in your backyard or on your hike. Like there's just so few places where you're like that close to a wild space like that.
I think locals really cherish the environment here. There are a lot of people here who are cut from that cloth, who really think it's valuable and will do anything in their power to protect it. I think that's one of the reasons that Jackson is so well preserved, and the wilderness and forest and national park land around it is so pristine. Jackson wouldn't be what it is today, wouldn't be as pristine as it is today without the local community here pushing for protection and preservation and conservation.
To me, it seems that the locals are aware of the environment and strongly wish to protect it. Since the initial poll was largely due to nature, it makes sense. Thank you for watching. That's all for this episode. For the final video, click on the playlist I have made. Bye!